And he said to me, my dad's a doctor. Let me ask him, maybe he can make some phone calls, he can come back to you for some intel and help you make some decisions. So I went back with Ian that night. It was another one of those very long nights where he bled through the night. And in the morning, before that there was no activity. It was just a whole observation situation. In the morning, all of a sudden the door banged open and 9 doctors came in with clipboards. It was like ER, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they wheeled him off to surgery. And I was shocked. And these doctors were specialists from Emory Teaching University in the medical center. It's extraordinary that I didn't know about then, but I came to learn about. And I called Eric when Ian was in surgery, and I said, who's your father? Who does he know? He said, oh, well, my father didn't know anybody. But I called the head of the network and told him, or the head of the hospital, and told him that my best producer was down in your hospital, and if he dies, we're going to be all over you with a 48 hours expose, and you guys are going to be shut down. Thank you, Eric Schatz. And of course, Eric today is a big shot in producing reality television, and he actually did save Ian's life. But my takeaway for that is, if you're going to make a significant difference, you have to reach out for help. You can't do everything on your own. There's no way I could have amplified my skills and my talent for any of the stories that I told you earlier in this speech, and I certainly couldn't have saved Ian's life. So you do have to know when to ask for help. And you're talking to, I'm the girl who grew up in a small town where my father, with my 3 brothers and I, when we graduated from high school, he said to us, okay, this is it, you're on your own, get out of the house, and don't fail, don't come back and ask for help. So we never grew up learning to ask for help, and that was a real life lesson for me. Which takes me to the Sandra Moses part of this story, which is shortly after the hospital incident, Ian and I put together a partnership, and that partnership for a company to start developing shows. And my first office was the kitchen stool in our house and a telephone. But there are lots of successful partnerships in Los Angeles in the entertainment industry, and it turns out that Ian and I are one of those partnerships. So it's important to have an inside-out view of building your world, your life, and your career. And you can't shut everything out, or you will limit yourself. And that's what Ian and I discovered in the power of Sandra Moses. Together, we amplify the effect of each other individually. We create interdependence and we create independence. And the result is a valuable partnership. The first project we did was a movie of the week that we sold to Lifetime. It was called Stolen Babies. And it was a real life story that was set in the 1940s. And it was about 2 women who, one was a social worker and one was a judge. And they got together and they formed this unlikely partnership. And what they did was they used the judicial system to steal children from indigent families and sell them to wealthy people like Joan Crawford out here in Hollywood. And so we made the movie, we sold it to Lifetime. Mary Tyler Moore played one role, and then Leah Thompson played the social worker. Mary was the social worker who drove this organization, and it was a very successful movie. It was so successful that ABC, who's the partner to Lifetime, put it on ABC first, and then it went on Lifetime. It won some Emmys, and the most important part of that project was not the movie itself, but what it did was it inspired an organization to be created down in the South, where they started to reunite the 6,000 children that had been stolen from their families. Now, these people were grown-ups at this point, and they had no idea that they had been stolen from their families. They were truly stolen babies. And the irony of the whole thing is that one of the people who was stolen from his family, Ian came to discover, he knew he was a network executive. So it was really a remarkable journey. So the takeaway from that experience is about partnership. One completes the other. If you can find a partner who adds value to the partnership and adds value to you, you create, what we did was we created a very powerful right brain, left brain team. And in our case, 1 and 1 makes 1,000. So you can do good work if you have a viable partnership, and you can even have significant social relevance, which is the most important thing, I think, when you're trying to make a mark in the world and you can contribute. So the journey of Sandra Moses is that we have produced 8 television series and lots of movies for television, network, and cable. And together, we ran a show, I don't know if anybody knows it, it was called Profiler, and it was on NBC. It was about 9 years ago. And Profiler really, it was on for 4 years. Is it time for me to get off the stage? Should I go? Anyway, Profiler was a television show where we did some work at the intersection of television and the internet. And it was a very interesting experiment. And what we did was we created the website of a serial killer who was one of the characters in the television show, and he was stalking the lead, who was an FBI agent, and she would take down the bad guys. And so that experience, what we did was we had the camera snake up over the guy's shoulder, and you could see his URL, and you could virtually go in and interact with the serial killer and learn about the characters in the show. It was incredibly successful. We had 700,000 hits in 3 days, where NBC, in all of their shows, had 1 million hits in a week. So you can imagine how successful it was back then. But then after 2 weeks, it crashed the site. The press got in touch with us and did a lot of coverage. And in the end, am I supposed to get off the stage? Well, okay. Thank you. So what happened was the Standards and Practices people called us and they said, listen, we can't have the most successful website at NBC be that of a serial killer. So you have to take it down. Now, what we could have done was we could have been really angry and went off and said, well, they can go to hell, and but what we did was we decided we'll take it down, and the takeaway from that is to try and get people to jump into the success with you. Once you've created that turn wheel, you've given us a couple spins, and then build it, create insight, bring it along, and then pack it up and put it in a corner. So the last thing, because I'll jump to the very end, which is the takeaway for all of this is, as women sitting there in the audience, one day I came home from work and I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, my hair was sticking up, my clothes were all messed up, and I had ink on my face, and I was trying to figure out how I had gotten to that point, because I know I dressed myself in the morning and I looked decent and all of that kind of stuff. And what I realized was, and many of you have had these kinds of days too, which is, there was truly the day from hell, where I woke up in the morning, I went to work, my husband, who's my partner, was directing, and the first thing he did on the first shot was he walked right into a Luma crane and knocked himself out. So there was the panic on the set of that, and then we were shooting and it started raining, and we had 30 semi-trailer trucks and 200 people out in the streets of Los Angeles. We had to turn around and get back on the stage and catch up. We were 2 hours behind because of the move. And I had to go over to the studio and meet with the head of the studio to convince him to get the network to put money towards an actor that we needed to cast in a show and get wardrobe to get on the air. I had to give notes to I had to give notes on an episode that was going to go on the air in a week, and it just went on and on and on. And in the middle of this, my son, my 13-year-old, fell during basketball practice at school and broke his arm. So by the end of the day, I was able to handle everything, delegate, be there when my son got his cool Dayglow cast on, which made him very happy, and all the other things. And I think it's just really important to make sure that when you take this journey and you look at a day like that, that you stop and you appreciate what you've done and what your contribution is, and do everything to the max and make sure that you take what you've learned that day, even though it's going really fast, both the emotional components and the actual task components, and take those with you, because they are going to actually be with you. Now, I'm still the girl from the coal mining town, and I've taken a couple of values, which is my street smarts and my gratitude, because every day I look around where I live, who I'm with, and the world that I operate in, the entertainment industry, and I'm immensely grateful for all of those opportunities. I'm also the woman who is in the entertainment industry, who has become successful, and is inspired by big ideas, their evolution, and their future. And I use these themes as a focal point for my energy, because I'm one of those people who's very high energy, and I have to do a lot of things, and if I don't have a theme, then I can get lost. So as the opportunities get richer and richer for women, many choices can be almost as paralyzing as no choices at all, which is where I started in this story. My options were a nurse, a teacher, or get married. But I remember, but don't forget that I found this theme, and that theme is live in the place you belong, be with the people you love, and do the right work on purpose, and break some rules along the way. Because if you behave consistently with the results you want, and things will move in your direction. So I wish you all luck, and thank you for having me.